When you think Canadian bands, I think you think of a handful of bands, and certainly, if not at the top of the list, then vying for the top slot is Rush, Canada's power trio.
They were a musicians' band. Musicians who go to see bands or listen to bands could really appreciate the talent of these guys.
They were a band that were pushing the limits technically as a band. I mean, as a three-piece band even, they were just unbelievable musicians. They were writing great songs, but they were also saying, hey guys, you know, this is the new standard for what it means to be in a band at this time. You got to be able to play like this.
Back then, there were very few groups that only had 3 members that could put out a sound like that. And the first one that I remembered was Emerson, Lake and Palmer and their brand of progressive rock. But when Rush came along, they somehow massaged it, reinvented it into something else.
Rush is a very good debut album. Obviously the best was still to come, but I mean, as a first album, it was really good. It had some of their more rock songs.
They released their debut and Buddy Holly cover on Moon Records on their own label, you know, and the whole idea of doing the cover, I guess, was to try and, you know, get some sort of major label interest. Live-wise, they were getting quite a following. They managed to do New York Dolls, I think, through Canada, and then went ZZ Top into America. So, you know, they were starting to get noticed with their live stuff.
It was the only album that didn't have Neil Peart on drums. The original drummer was a man named John Rutsey, who decided after the debut album it just wasn't what he was looking for. He really didn't like the touring. And the band, of course, at the time was playing every small town in Canada they possibly could play to pay for recording possibly the next album, which wouldn't include him because before that he had quit.
The fact that John Rutsey drummed instead of Neil Peart, who joined thereafter, it kind of gives it a charm and a point of interest from the sake of, you know, this was just a basement band that came out of the basement and caught the world by storm.
Okay, it certainly sounded like Led Zeppelin. I mean, it was certainly, there's a song on there, Finding My Way, that I think kind of sums a lot of it up, actually, because they weren't quite there yet. They did a very convincing Led Zeppelin, but it sounded a lot more like Led Zeppelin than it ever did the Rush that came after that.
They were unsure of their direction. They weren't sure where they wanted to go. They were being influenced by the likes of Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin, but they needed to find their own form.
if you go track by track, the first Rush record had just great rock and roll songs. A couple of ballads too. But there's two songs in that first Rush record that still matter a lot today to listeners of radio in Canada, Working Man and In the Mood. They're staples of rock radio, and they're from that very first Rush record in 1974.
When they launched into Working Man with that guitar riff, nobody in this country was quite doing that. And it just had that raw energy that just reached down and grabbed you where it counted, and then it went off and into so many different ways, but it was still basically a three-piece rock group without being too progressive, but just the way it all came together with the right amount of angst. I'm a working man, damn it, you know, that kind of thing.
Songs like that, they put them in the category of really heavy rock music. It was, it was aggressive, really.
There's a very different kind of Rush. But I think it's a good debut because it just displayed potential in the band.
You can see the early albums, the very strong influences from other acts, and as they progress with their songwriting, that disappears and their own style really takes over.